Hey everybody, welcome to the Portal to Ascension pre-conference interviews. We've got Ray Hernandez here with us. Going to be talking about, he will be at the event.
Yep.
He will be speaking at the event. He's going to give us all his information and talk about what he does and what he's involved in.
Yeah.
And let's give him the time that he needs to get his interview going.
Yeah, Ray's a very busy guy. He's got a very busy full-time career, but he's committed to getting information out and supporting the information and experiences that we all have in all of our expandable things that we do in our lives, our conscious awareness states, our contacts, our information, our spirit guides that come through. And we love people like Ray, like all of us, who really help us all come out of our spiritual closets, our secret closets, when we have things going on in our lives and we sometimes can't find the support team around us. We definitely need people to talk to. We need people to inspire us, support us in all of our experiences. And Ray is definitely one of those guys. As you come out to the Portal to Ascension Expo, we want you to make sure you are sitting in Ray's audience. Also get to know him, understand everything that he does. So Ray, thank you so much for being in this pre-conference interview with us.
Thank you for the invitation. I look forward to our discussion.
Let's start out. I'm going to let you introduce yourself and tell everybody kind of what you do, but let's go also in this conversation, if we may, back to how all of this started for you, where you started tapping into these conversations of kind of that extraordinary stuff that's going on out there beyond the normal realities for everybody.
Okay. Before March 4th of 2012, I was totally clueless of the phenomenon of the paranormal, consciousness, UFOs, NDEs, OBEs, ghosts and spirits, et cetera, et cetera. I was a total atheist, material rationalist. I had gone to Cornell for a master's, Berkeley for a PhD, and then later on I became an attorney. So everyone at the conference I'm going to be presenting at, I thought we're all kooks. So that was just a mindset of how these things developed. And then in March 4th, 2012, I won't go into the details, but basically my wife had been praying for our dog who was totally paralyzed all night. And in the morning, what I call an energy being appeared in our living room to my wife and I. The energy being made my wife disappear in front of me and the dog, put me to sleep for 45 minutes. And then when I woke up, my wife was celebrating in the middle of the living room saying, "Hallelujah, hallelujah, the angels cured her." And the dog was running around the entire living room. And so to me, it was like an atomic bomb exploded in my brain. And then my wife had an experience about a month later where she encountered very up close a UFO right outside her house at 3:30 in the morning. And then she spent an entire month in Mexico, and she would pray to see her angels. And each time a very large UFO would appear. Twice her family members saw the UFO very up close. And one time, these three human-looking individuals floated right in front of her. They were 7 to 8 feet tall, with monk robes on, and so these experiences lasted for quite a while with my wife. Tons of precognition, where she even detected a tumor in my back. She knew that our car was going to blow up. She wasn't going to go in the car unless we brought it to the mechanic. And after like a week of her harassing me, I finally brought it to the mechanic. And guess what? He said, "Thank God you didn't take that, because the car would have exploded." So it was tons of these precognition experiences. and many other types of contact experiences. And I just recently found out, after 26 years of marriage, that when she was young, she used to play with little people. Her and her mother see many orbs and UFOs when they were younger, but they never discussed these things openly. And then my experiences began 6 months after that initial experience, where I also wanted to call down and interact with the UFO that she had been interacting with. And it started off as a foolish joke. But then once I got into it, I became very clear about wanting to see that UFO. And lo and behold, within 15 minutes, a football stadium size object appeared right on top of my next door neighbor's house and interacted with myself, my daughter, and 3 friends for over 45 minutes. And I could have gotten a rock and hit it. That's how close this thing was. There was communication that took place, telepathic communications. And after that initial experience in August of 2012, began almost 2.5 years of nonstop paranormal experiences for me. And even how they brought me spirituality. Here I was, a total atheist, material rationalist. It was through a series of NDE related experiences, where at the end, these series of experiences involving my daughter's pediatrician and my father and myself, where I acknowledged out to the stars that that I wanted to thank them, because in a 4-month period they totally transformed an atheist material rationalist into someone that doesn't have a belief, but I have a knowing that I'm an eternal spiritual being. So, and during this time period, events were orchestrated. I mean, synchronicity is not even a good word for it. It was as if this intelligence knew it was about to happen and put things in place. One experience that I'll tell you about was how this organization started, the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Free Foundation. It started, and I don't talk too much about it because it's really a case of, but these were what my experiences were during this 2.5 years, which still continues somewhat to this day, but not at that nonstop pace that it did. I was driving my car at 8:30 heading into downtown Miami, and then in the middle of a traffic jam, listening to this radio interview of this man doing a documentary on his liposuction. He was doing art fat. And so I was, entertained, because here's a guy doing, sculptures from his own fat, making a documentary about it. Well, in the middle of that conversation, all of a sudden, I wasn't in my car anymore. I was a body in reality. And in this other non-3D reality, I was inside a big, gigantic wheel that was like 10 times the size of a Ferris wheel. And then in each spoke of this wheel was what I now call a contact modality. For example, UFOs, near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, channeling, shamanic hallucinogenic journeys, remote viewing, ghosts and spirits, orbs, et cetera, all the different ways that humans reveal and having contact with non-human intelligence. And it was shown to me in a separate component of the wheel, like in spokes. And I visually would look at it and I would know what that was. And then it wasn't a voice, but it was straight information that told me these are all the different ways that humans have literally pierced the veil and are communicating with us. Humans are studying them as separate and distinct phenomenon, but in fact, it's one phenomenon. And the glue that's holding it all together, humans are calling it consciousness. In reality, it's the very fabric of our reality. And then it started giving me some physics equations and information to explain all of this, which I didn't understand. And it gave me instructions what I needed to do. And then said basically, I need to inform humanity of the relationship between them, the spirit world, and consciousness. This is not about getting rich, making money out of this. And secondly, the individuals are going to be helping me have to be individuals with minimal ego. And then poof, I'm back in my car listening to this man doing art fat, from his liposuction, and not even a second had skipped. I was taken outside of space time, outside of time and outside of space into this reality. About 20 or 30 minutes, I thought I was in that other reality, and I was put back without any time elapsing. Now, that experience in and of itself was not really the wild. Immediately happened. When I got home that evening, I got an email from Mary Rodwell, who's one of the world's leading researchers of UFO contact experiencers. And she said, "Dear Ray, I'm sorry that I'm responding to an email that you had sent me 6 months ago, but it just popped up on my screen today." Okay, so apparently this email was held up in cyberspace for 6 months until that day of this experience. So then I responded back. I said, "Well, you ain't seen nothing yet. This is what happened over the last 6 months, a whole bunch of crazy stuff. And this is what happened today. And today is just an example of all this crazy stuff that was happening to me." And so she was like fascinated, and she said, "Can we talk?" And so she showed me how to use Skype. I'd never used Skype before. We were on Skype till like 1:30 in the morning. And she was absolutely fascinated by my experiences. And we decided to continue talking. Now, the very next day, this is the very next day after my experience, I got a telephone call. "Hello, is this Ray Hernandez?" I said, "Yes, who's this?" "Dr. Rudy Shields." I said, "Who?" I had no idea who this man was. And it turned out to be an emeritus professor of astrophysics from Harvard University, basically a Stephen Hawking person who said that Stephen Hawking was completely wrong about black holes and his theory of astrophysics. And it turned out to be many years later that Hawking did publicly reveal that he was completely wrong about black holes. And so he told me, asked permission to speak with me. And what he told me was that Mary had sort of jumped the gun and given me his contact information before I had gotten back to her. But I never read Mary's email requesting permission. So Rudy was the one, in fact, that jumped the gun. And so he then told me that the experience I had was Dr. Edgar Mitchell's quantum hologram theory of consciousness. And Edgar Mitchell was the 14th man on the moon, Apollo 6 astronaut. And to me, he's more well known not for being an astronaut, but for being the founder of the Institute for Noetic Sciences. He was also one of the pioneers that helped to develop remote viewing. And the Institute for Noetic Sciences is now probably the major research institute on the study of the science of consciousness. So he then called me, Rudy then told me Edgar's telephone number. And he said, "Write down this telephone number, write it down." He says, "This is the telephone number of my mentor." And I was like, well, who in the hell could be this guy's mentor? So I said, "Well, who's your mentor?" And he goes, "Dr. Edgar Mitchell." So I waited about 4 hours to give him a call because I knew that this man was very famous. And I was nervous about calling him. So I called him in the afternoon. Mind you, this is, 30 hours after my initial experience. So I talked to Edgar. Edgar said that Rudy and he had already discussed my experiences and that he wanted to meet me. He told me he was only 90 minutes away and would I care to come by his home. So the very next day, this is within 48 hours, I was at the home of Edgar Mitchell. And I was there the entire day. And he started spilling his guts about everything about his life. He was just nonstop telling me everything. And I was like freaking out because, why is this man telling me all of this, and just so many details. He told me all about Roswell, that he grew up in Roswell, that all of the cosmonauts and astronauts had paranormal experiences in space, that for the last 30 years he had been working on researching the connection between science and the paranormal and consciousness and just on and on and on. And then at the end, he told me, he says, look, Ray, what you experienced was what I call the quantum hologram theory of consciousness, where everything is interrelated, nothing is separate. You were shown how all of the paranormal is interrelated. I've been arguing this for many, many, many years, but no one is interested in this. And Rudy and I already discussed it. We will be your scientific advisors for your mandate. That was the word he used. And I was like, in my head, what the hell is this man talking about? My mandate. I couldn't even understand what my experience was. And he's talking about I have to complete my mission. And so, but anyway, he put that in my head. And so I called Mary Rodwell, and we had a chat on Skype. And I said, these two geniuses want to work with me to help me out to implement the information that I was given. But totally clueless as to what the hell is going on, what I'm supposed to do. So Mary agreed to join us. So this was an organization that had no mission, no vision, no idea what we'd be doing. But Edgar had told me, don't worry about that because it'll come to you. It always works that way. So I had no idea what he meant then. So what had happened was, like, about 2 weeks later, I woke up on a Saturday morning, and in my head, I had the whole blueprint of what this organization would be doing. It was a complete download. And as a matter of fact, that's how our book was written. Again, on another Saturday morning, I woke up and I had all the chapters for our book, all the co-authors, all of the topics, all the subjects, numerous co-authors. We're talking even Brad Steiger, the godfather of the paranormal, who agreed 2 weeks later to write the conclusion for our chapter while he was in hospice. And he wrote it a couple of weeks before he died. Anyway, so I wrote out the details of what we'd be doing. And what we're doing was, here I was, a UFO contact experiencer. I've had all of the paranormal shown to me. I've experienced all of the paranormal. So I knew all of the contact modalities. Again, UFO contact, near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, ghosts and spirits, shamanic journeys, ESP, electronic voice boxes, orbs, you name it, okay? So I knew that they were all interrelated. But when it came to the UFO contact experience, initially I had done an academic literature review to see what had been written academically about this phenomenon. And what I discovered was nothing, absolutely nothing. So how are we going to be able to compare UAP? I prefer that term, UAP, because UFO tends to refer to 3D type of experiences in the sky. UAP is every type of light configuration, and that's the majority of what people are seeing in the sky. So how are we able to compare the individuals seeing UAPs and have had contact on human intelligence with, for example, near-death experiencers, where there's tons of literature, academic literature on that data. Even with out-of-body experiencers, there's tons of data on that phenomenon, not just case studies, but actual data. So what we need to do in order to looking in the long term, to be able to compare the experiencers of the different phenomenon, we needed data on the UFO contact experiencer. It never existed. So within a 2-week period after this, all of a sudden we had all these very famous professors that wanted to join us. And lo and behold, it turned out like half of these professors were experiencers themselves. These are very, very big heavyweights. For example, Dr. Claude Swanson has a PhD in physics from Princeton University. He's written 3 major books. The last one was like a 700-page book titled The Science of the Soul, where he talks about the modalities, spirituality, and the shift, the transition that's taking place. Now, this is a man that got his PhD where Einstein taught at Princeton. Dr. Bob Davis, a professor of neuroscience for 35 years. Dr. John Klimo, a professor of psychology for over 45 years. And what did he do? He basically researched the paranormal. So there was many others at that type of level, you know, of academia, together with people like Mary Rodwell, Kathleen Martin, Barbara Lamb, Leo Sprinkle, the people that had their boots on the ground working with experiencers, to come together as a group, both the academics and the researchers, and say, how do we begin to study this phenomenon? A phenomenon that's never been academically studied before. So after about 9 months, we developed a very comprehensive scientific academic research methodology, which was comprised of 3 surveys, 2 quantitative surveys of 600 questions, and 1 qualitative survey, which is written responses to 70 open questions. And we spent 3.5 years collecting this data in multiple languages. And what I'm going to tell you today is just the English language responses. We wound up in the English language with more than 4,200 experiencers from over 100 countries. It was mind-blowing. And we had a statistician involved in our group as well, Dr. Russell Scalpone. And what we did is we grouped individual responses from different country codes. So all the groups, all the members in the US, all the members in Canada, all the members in the United Kingdom, all the members in continental Europe, Australia, New Zealand, we grouped them together. And then we looked at how they answered each question. And what we found out, within 10 percentage points, they were answering the same way to each question. So that means that people were answering consistently the same way, no matter what that question was. Again, another indicator of the validity of our study, and that there wasn't much of a difference based upon language or culture or reason. People having the same experience no matter where they lived. Okay. So then, then we spent about 1.5 years analyzing the data. Okay, and we wound up publishing 2 academic papers in peer-reviewed journal. The first one was a journal for the Society for Scientific Exploration, which is a journal that Jacques Vallée published many of his articles. Dr. Dean Radin published many of these articles. So this is highly reputable organization. The director of that were 2 full-time professors. Dr. Stephen Broad is a professor of philosophy, and he's been studying parapsychology for over 30 years. And then we wound up publishing an 820-page book. The name of the book, and people can buy it on Amazon if they're interested, is titled Beyond UFOs. The science.
Say beyond UFOs?
Beyond UFOs, because this phenomenon is way beyond the nuts and bolts of ufology. So it's beyond, we should have titled it way beyond UFOs, but it's beyond UFOs, the science of consciousness and contact with non-human intelligence. Okay, and let me just get a copy of the book so you can see how thick it is. Hold on a second.
We know that he's here's the thing. This is what is so, even though the connection is, there's a little bit of a connection issue here, the fact is, don't necessarily, yeah, look at
820 pages.
Yeah.
You know, he's using the law.
Well, his mindset too.
Right. He's using the approach of the law and what would actually stand up as evidence if you were to prove it in a court of law.
Well, I love this. So Ray, in case you don't know what we do, I trans-channel a group named Julius that my husband met during a near-death experience in 2007. Julius gets up in front of an audience and speaks about many of the things that you're talking about, the interconnectedness and how it's connected, and how to grow past, the illusion of time.
Yeah,
and
Julius
and
has been human.
Yeah, yeah.
And so they talk about the human experience and what it's really you know, points of fact that are important in the human experience. But what I mean,
and so
this is very fascinating.
Well, the people that watch Julius are of one particular mindset. I also have a particular, what I guess you would call alien, although I don't consider Sinwar an alien at this point, but he has continual contact with me and we talk and he shows me many things. And so I love the approach, because obviously we get cynicism even when I'm trans-channeling Julius, although usually not for a long time by the time they experience Julius coming through. But I love the fact in your approach to everything, Ray, you kind of hit everything all full circle.
You guys, your whole group,
yeah.
And I'm sure this is what was talked about, that you didn't want to leave any door open. You know, you wanted the proof, the refutable proof, to prove to people, even though it doesn't matter how refutable evidence is to people, they still don't believe unless they've experienced it themselves.
Yeah, that's correct. I would agree with that.
I'm assuming that this is what you are going to be talking about at Portal to Ascension.
Well, I am talking about the data findings from our research study, and you mentioned this whole issue of channeling. The co-chair of our research committee is Dr. John Klimo, and his most famous work is a book titled Channeling, which is translated to 18 languages. Okay, we also have part of a new organization that we're forming now, Dr. Gary Schwartz, and he received a PhD in psychology from Harvard University, was a full tenured professor at Yale for over 20 years. And what he's been doing over the last 20 years at the University of Arizona is he's studying mediumship. So this is at the highest level. So that's what we're doing. You know, we're not dealing with nonsense and foolishness. We're dealing really with the science of consciousness. How might this be studied and researched? And then we had basically, I'll go very 4 data findings, which I won't go into the details of it, but basically these experiences, while initially were quite traumatic, 37% viewed their experiences as traumatic. Why? Because their whole worldview is totally destroyed. Secondly, they're seeing these physical entities right in front of them when you're totally not expecting these things. But overall, when they're answering their question, we asked 25 questions about whether these things were positive, negative, and neutral. We even asked questions about the specific type of being that they encountered. It was anywhere from between 85 to 95% said that their experiences were not negative. Okay, and then we asked them to forcefully choose between positive, negative, and neutral. It was only 5% said that negative. Okay, these also include people that have had quote unquote abductions, people that were forcefully taken to another location. And what we discovered was that even these abductees, 70% of these people now call themselves contactees. The reason is because these experiences continued. The first few experiences might have been negative and frightful. They might have had a physical inspection by a being, you know, checking them over. But 50% of all the people that took our survey said they had a medical healing by non-human intelligence. Ufology talk about that.
Fascinating part about all that, Ray, and I'm sure that your math or your science, however you want to word it, backs up the fact that due to the way people have been programmed as human beings through religion, through organizations, that
it's just the bullshit circulating in ufology. Okay.
That
I mean, to put it bluntly.
No. That thank you for that. I'm very glad that you say that.
Because our experiences are absolutely extraordinary,
right.
and I do this on a daily basis.
Our experiences are love-based experiences, folks. We've never told anybody anything negative about their human experience. It has always been for the positive, and when you really do your research and you really start listening to people that are out there putting their own skin.
4,200 people.
They're putting their own skin on the line, is the way I say. They're not talking negative. It's the other people that are trying to disclaim that this is actually going on, that are talking about the negative and the bad side effects and this and that. But there's a totally positive side to all of this, and wow, I'm thrilled to be able to give you the opportunity to talk about this on this program.
Ray, a little bit short on time. We want to give everybody the opportunity to obviously come out to the Portal Ascension event,
which is in Irvine.
Yeah, and we know that people watching this are planning on doing that. They're going to be in your audience. They're going to be wanting to talk to you. But even before that, can you show everybody the book again,
One
Ray,
more time,
please, and tell everybody how to get the book?
I will give people the first chapter of this book for free, which is 120 pages filled with data from our research study for free. Okay, so if you don't buy the book, I don't care. I just want you to read the data, because that's where the real truth is at. Okay, just send us your email to info, I-N-F-O, at Xpnsion.org. info@Xpnsion.org. And there's tons of data in there that totally contradicts what's circulating in ufology. And secondly, what I'm also talking about at the conference is a new research institute that we're going to be studying with over 15 PhD academics, like Gary Schwartz that I mentioned before, Jeffrey Mishloff, again, a person that's been talking about consciousness and parapsychology and the paranormal for over 40 years. And people at that level. We're going to be starting a new organization called CCI, Consciousness and Contact Research Institute. And we're going to be studying the relationship between consciousness and the contact modalities, because these experiences are multidimensional in nature. This is not about nuts and bolts. This is not about your brain. Okay, we are total spiritual beings. Consciousness is totally non-local. These experiences are multidimensional, and all of these academics have that hypothesis. So for the first time ever, we're going to be studying the relationship consciousness and the contact modalities. So hopefully in 5 years from now, we'll be cranking out like 3 of these books, because it's the experiencers, the people that have had these experiences, they hold the key to unlock the riddles and mysteries of what is consciousness. Not quantum physics, not these nuts and bolts ufology people. You know, it's the experiencer. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about at the conference.
Thank you, Ray, for your time.
Yeah,
you
thank
have
you.
an extraordinary energy, and I'm kind of just sitting here kind of marinating and assimilating your words. I appreciate you very deeply. We look forward to seeing you in person.
We'll come. We'll visit with you.
Yeah.
Come by our booth and have a sit down and let's talk just a little bit. We'll be there.
Most definitely, because as both of you know, all of these experiences are studied and identified as separate phenomena. Like, for example, the NDE folks will not talk to the UFO folks. The UFO folks will not talk to the OBE folks. The OB folks will not talk to the NDE folks. And I'm saying, are we living in a mad world here? You know, this is all one phenomenon, and we need to be able to work together, to be able to understand these complex riddles, because this is the true nature of who we really are and where we're going, because we're this intelligence is, they're preparing us for this new awakening, for this new transition. So we realize that we are not physical, bodies, that we are eternal spirits living in a temporary physical reality. and that we need to change because we're barbarians. We're killing, we're destroying each other. We're not loving, you know, we the ego of humanity. We totally fear death instead of we should be embracing death. We're not spiritual at all. Instead, we're dogmatic, religious entities at best, you know. And our planet, we're destroying our planet. We have no love for our planet. Just like we have no love for a fellow human being, we're treating the planet the same way, you know, like dirt, like garbage, like something that has to be exploited, like buying Greenland and using it for mineral rights, you know. Instead of realizing, look, you know, global warming is destroying our planet, we need to, you know, reverse this through this multi-trillion-dollar New Deal program to take care of planet Earth. But instead, you know, we're talking about buying Greenland. You know, it's like, look how barbaric, you know, humans are. You know, we need to change. And hopefully some of my talk, some of my presentation will talk about how one of the other major findings is that these experiencers that took our survey, okay, these are UFO related contact experiences, totally transformed themselves. Totally. In the different ways that I talked about. It was 85% of these people went in a category. Out came a butterfly. Okay. Same thing with NDE experiencers. Dr. Kenneth Ring wrote about it in his book, The Omega Project, where he compared NDE experiences with UFO contact experiences. And what did he find? Back in 1988, that both groups, 85% of both groups, totally transformed themselves into a new personality profile, a new worldview. And so we duplicated his questions, the same thing. Okay? So these experiences are not horrific experiences. These are experiences that are totally changing us to someone that we would want to be our best friend, our spouse, our children, you know, total loving, spiritual, earth-loving human beings. And then the other third major finding is that these experiences were primarily paranormal in nature. While there is a physicality to it, the overwhelming majority of these experiences were paranormal. That's number 3. And number 4 is that these experiences demonstrate that there's a manipulation of space-time. Just like out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, channeling, ghosts and spirits, etc., etc. All of it involves a manipulation of space and time. That's the main factor that they have in common. So if it's all involving very similar aspects of manipulation of space-time, why shouldn't we begin to be able to research and study this as integrated phenomena? And so that's what this new organization is going to be doing, and I'm going to be talking about that at the conference. And I hope that everyone attends this wonderful conference sponsored by Neil's organization, Portal to Ascension. He's done a wonderful, wonderful job to awaken humanity to this new reality, and I encourage everyone to come out of the closet and come talk to other experiencers to share your personal experiences as well, because we need to be able to talk and share with each other of this new awakening.
Thank you, Ray, so much
for
your articulation and your intelligence and your knowing. We have our knowing as well, and we invite all of you to come out and meet Ray, see Ray, feel genuinely his authentic application in this, his dedication in this, and use it as an inspiration for your own self in your life as well. You don't have to have these particular categorized experiences. It's all in here. All we have to do is allow all of, yep. And so that's gonna, that's
going down a UFO.
Right,
Okay.
Right.
This goes in and out.
Yeah.
Okay, if you don't have the love, the necessary love to be able to call down these UFOs, they're never going to come down. And anyone can do it, just like these experiences. Okay, again, it's not 100% guaranteed, but you know, mystical meditation through channeling, these are things that can be taught. As you know, both of you know, I'm preaching to the converted here.
Thanks again, Ray, for being with us and spending so much of your valuable time.
We'll see you at the event.
Yeah. Say it one more time, Portal to Ascension
Portal
Conference.
to Ascension.
Right.
Okay.
Come on out, check out
Irvine, California.
Irvine, California.
Website. just type in Google Portal to Ascension, and you'll see the dates and the location in Irvine, California, and you'll meet wonderful people. I was there last year, and there was wonderful, loving individuals. And that's the first thing I'm going to do when I see both of you. When I come up to you, give you a big fat hug and a wet kiss on the cheek.
And maybe a beer afterwards, right? Buy a beer afterwards. Thanks again, Ray.
Thanks, Ray.
Thanks for everybody joining us. Climb on that website, get some more information. We'll look forward to seeing you at that event as well. And all of you have the most extraordinary days.